Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Michelle Brock, who's here to share with us her new book, Who Do You Think You Are? An interactive journey through your past lives and into your best future. What if the patterns in your life didn't begin here, but in a past life? Well, today's guest is here to share with us just that. Michelle Brock is a New York City-based spiritual development life coach who specializes in past life regressions. Her work has been featured on Inside Amy Schumer, and her clients include celebrities, CEOs, writers, artists, and academics. So welcome to the show, Michelle Brock.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, what a great honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. So what even inspired you to go into not only writing a book about past lives, but diving into this topic?
Yeah, so I've been doing work with my clients for about 20 years, helping them recall memories from their past lives. I got into this work through my own experience. I actually began to recall memories from my own past lives, which was interesting in of itself, but what was most fascinating was how applicable they were to my life right now, and how quickly and easily I was able to make shifts and changes and heal things in the present by way of having that insight. And so, it's fascinating work. I mean, there are a million and one applications, from a client level where people come in with phobias or, stuck in patterns they can't understand, relationship issues. And looking into their past lives gives them a different lens by which to view the present and therefore the future that we're creating with our choices. The future is not determined. So that's a little bit about how I got into past life work. And the book is really kind of a insight into, kind of what I've seen and what I've learned. My biggest teachers are my clients, these people who are generous enough to share their spiritual path with me and give me insight into these kind of aha and wow moments that they have. And the book really speaks to kind of the present moment in the same way, too, in that I was watching all of the divisiveness that we're experiencing all over the world, but particularly here in the United States. The idea that we can see any human being as other than ourselves by way of how they look or their background or their beliefs, their race, ethnicity, gender expression. And I just remember having a moment where I thought, if everyone everywhere could see what I've seen, which is that we're a soul, not a body. We reincarnate over many, many lifetimes as all things, all genders, all expressions of what it means to be human, that people would not be divided. People would be able to connect on this level of shared humanity more easily. So that was my intention behind the book. And it really was just about sharing all of the amazing things I've learned from now working with thousands of people doing past life regression work.
So in your book, you write that you are not your name. What do you
Mhm.
mean by that? Because I think for folks who are new to the idea or the concept of past lives, they may not really understand this.
Yeah, so the book is actually about identity, right? And in the book, I go through all of the different ways that we identify ourselves. And with the idea of the name, it's like that primordial sense of self, that when we're born into this life, we're given that name, and that's the I, capital AM, I am, the me in this lifetime. And so what I want people to challenge is all of the different ways they identify themselves that they aren't necessarily true, that you've lived other past lives and had been given different names. So each of the chapters kind of outlines a different way that we identify ourselves, including the things that have happened to us, our story, right? The ways that we have formulated our beliefs and our thoughts through our unique experience, the lens. I'm trying to get people to open the curtains a little bit wider and see that it's not just about this one lifetime, that we have many, many lifetimes. And so, yes, we have this identity in this life. I have a name. You're Marianne and I'm Michelle in this lifetime. But is that who we are in its entirety? Right? It's not, because we're discounting all of the other experiences we had. So it's really kind of poking a hole in all of the identities that we cling to that end up being these kind of rigid structures by which we view ourselves that do allow us to kind of otherize other people. So that's kind of what I mean by you are not your name, meaning you've lived many lifetimes before. So you are many names, and, therefore not just relegated to that one identity in this lifetime.
So, what was a catalyst that even had you looking at reincarnation as a possibility?
Yeah, so it was about 20 years ago. I actually was introduced to a book called Many Lives, Many Masters by a wonderful author named Dr. Brian Weiss. I read it in one sitting, cover to cover, could not put it down. It was the most compelling thing I had ever read in my entire life. And, just as a little bit of background, I didn't grow up with reincarnation being a belief that was taught in my family or even spoken about. Um, I think I'd taken one Eastern philosophy class that introduced the idea, but it was kind of floating on a cloud somewhere. It was ethereal. I never personalized it, right? Like, who was I before in a past life? And for any of your listeners who aren't familiar with that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, Dr. Brian Weiss is a psychiatrist who is guiding one of his patients through some symptoms that were really problematic and using hypnosis to uncover buried memories. And her memories went beyond this lifetime into previous lifetimes. And what was most compelling about it was that she recovered. She got better. Her symptoms were alleviated just by remembering these past lives. So after I read that book, I thought, this is the coolest thing I've ever heard of. I never even knew this was a thing. And I remember Googling, I wanted to find out, this patient that Dr. Brian Weiss talks about, he calls her Catherine. It's not her real name. I wanted to see who she was. Like, what book did she write? That was what I wanted to read next, where she's speaking. And obviously it was in therapy, the context, that her privacy was important to her. She's never really come public as that person. But I saw that he was lecturing and was doing like a weekend retreat. And I attended that workshop. There were a few hundred people there, and that experience changed my life. I began to uncover memories of my own past lives. And it was at a time that my life was at a real crossroads. I was in a marriage that wasn't serving either of us, was falling apart. I just lost my grandmother. And, I wasn't having any like real problems. I was having like kind of like spiritual crisis. I know that people have crises that are a lot more serious. I was kind of having that dark night of the soul, looking for meaning and purpose. And this just really helped me heal from a lot of the grief I felt from losing my mother when I was 2, my upbringing, the way I grew up, and it made so many things come into focus. I got so much clarity from my past lives that I really just felt like I needed to pay this forward and share this experience with as many people as I possibly could. So I started a life coaching practice, and I do hypnosis to help people uncover their past life memories. I've been doing this ever since. That was in 2006. So it is 20 years now. And it's super rewarding. And like I said, super fascinating. And the fact that, the book gets to be kind of a companion to the work I do is really amazing too. I wrote the book not just to be more stories about past lives. There are a lot of books that share past life stories or even kind of clinical, you know, different ideologies about things. It's not a religious book. It's not a spiritual book. It's not a clinical book. It's a companion guide to your own spiritual journey as you start to strip away that like ego self, not ego in a bad way, like you're, conceited or something, but that idea of like who I am, which is what happened to me. So this is based on my own journey. I really did a lot of deconstruction around my beliefs, my thoughts, and my identity of who I thought I was. So that's why I wrote the book, and I hope people are enjoying it.
So, what happens to a person's limiting beliefs, or maybe the places in their life when they're stuck when they have a past life regression?
Yeah, the limiting beliefs are a big one, right? When we have these kind of ideas that if I do this, something bad might happen, or I can't put myself out there because I'm not good enough, or fill in the blank, right? We all have these beliefs. And so when you start to do past life work, you start to realize there are stories that came from the past, things that happened to us, traumas, even sometimes even capital T traumas that have led to those thoughts and those beliefs. The idea is that the unconscious, rules our lives. It rules our thoughts. It rules our patterns. It creates biases, both about ourselves and others. So when you really are able to take a shovel and dig into your unconscious and you pull up these stories like in a past life, I died doing XYZ, or I was a witch who was burned at the stake for speaking my truth, right? You can start to say, well, you know what, in this lifetime, it's safe to speak my truth. You're actually able to create a new narrative around those limiting beliefs by actually assigning a story to it that comes from a past life that came from a time before.
Your book is highly interactive with journaling and meditation exercises. Why was it important for you to make this experimental journey rather than just informational?
Yeah, like I said, I really wanted it to be a companion as you kind of go along this spiritual path. And I really wanted it to be a tool to teach someone who is even a beginner, who's never even heard of this, to start to train your unconscious mind to be aware of your past life. Simple things like look around your house, notice how you decorate your house, or if there are certain places you like to travel to, or foods that you love. When you start to actually put past lives in your purview in a certain way, you start to attract those experiences to you and open your intuition. You'll invite dreams where you actually can experience past lives. The book is also in audiobook form, and a lot of people are enjoying that because I was actually able to narrate it myself. And so there's a lot of meditations and journaling exercises that people enjoy doing with the audiobook as well. But again, I didn't want to just write another book that was about past lives. I wanted to give you an active tool to use to be able to have this experience. I think a lot of people are curious. They want to know who they were in a past life, and they want to know how to take that past life and use it in their life today. And so I created this as a guidebook for how to do that.
I think that is so empowering. Then people can walk this journey with a little bit of direction because it would be kind of, for most people, they don't know where to start, especially when we talk about past lives.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of, mystery and the great unknown around a lot of these spiritual concepts. But when we're talking about past lives, we are talking about death and dying, and specifically our own death, that we've lived before and our body died, and that we have a consciousness that did survive that death and came beyond. And, death is still the great unknown, even if we have direct experience with it, right? And so it's really important, I think, to feel supported as you kind of delve into that dark part. I mean, it is shadow work in a certain way, which is important to feel supported when we start to dive into, not only our own deaths, but all of the things that we've done before that we regret that we're still working on, right? We're actually recalibrating, um, our concept of how far we think we've come by looking to see where we've been before. It gives such valuable perspective. But yeah, it is important to feel that you have a little bit of a, I guess, guardrails for kind of where to look rather than stare into this abyss of the unknown and all of your deaths and consciousness and all that is, right? So that's what I tried to do.
In your book, you share about intuition and clairsense. How can someone begin to recognize which intuitive ability is the strongest for them?
Great question. A lot of people will experience their past life regression a lot like they dream. In fact, when I'm working with my clients one on one, what we start off with is a dialogue about, tell me about the most recent dream that you had that you can remember. Some people sleep really deeply and don't remember their dreams. That doesn't mean you can't do this. That just means that you're able to kind of descend into some of the lower rungs of the ladder of consciousness, right? But some people that are really visual dreamers will experience their past life visually, right? Clairvoyantly. I call them the clairs in my book. Where some people, it's a little more ethereal. They kind of sense it or feel it or know it. And so I included a bunch of different exercises in the book to really kind of become friends with your unconscious, which is where your past life memories lie. A dream is actually a conversation with your unconscious that is, random. And maybe it's not even random. It could come from your spirit guides or your higher self is showing you what you need to know. Where when we're doing past life regression work, we're going into the unconscious with a shovel looking for specific information. And so the better friends you are with your unconscious and the more you understand and know about how you experience that material yourself, the easier it is to navigate. And it can change over time. It's possible to develop, certain skills. Some people, they only sense it or feel it and they really want to see it, so there's ways that you can kind of develop that. But I think that most of us have like a kind of primary way of experiencing that intuitive unconscious mind material.
What are some of the most common reasons people seek you out for a past life regression?
I would say curiosity. I would say that because of the fact that I'm doing this work as a life coach and not as a therapist, I think that that's a completely different context. Um, I think that there's a kind of spiritual kind of pull people feel to now it's time to start uncovering more about myself, right? But I also get people that, you know, are trying to search for a loved one that they lost, right? Soulmates are real. I've discovered that we reincarnate with people again and again and again over many lifetimes. We were connected to people before in past lives and we reincarnate with them again. Grief, healing from grief is a big one. Phobias, like I mentioned, I get people with all kinds of really interesting and sometimes even strange phobias that make no sense outside of the context of the past life story in which they formed. People that are terrified of tight spaces, but not elevators, only stairwells, right? And there's a story that comes with that. So, but I would say that the overwhelming majority of my clients are simply curious and their soul is calling them to, explore themselves on a deeper level.
So, when someone has a past life regression, how does that shift their fears or thoughts around death?
Great question. So, like I said, death is the great unknown. But once you see that you've lived before, that also means that you'll live again. And that is validation that your consciousness does survive death and beyond. I think it's one thing to have faith that something is real, right? Like somebody will, I believe that there's life after death, or I believe there's a heaven, which I've come to not believe in heaven or hell in the, classical religious concept. that, it's one thing to have faith in something and another to experience it directly. So once you actually see yourself, and there's a moment in past life regression work that I do with people where I guide them through their death, and then I have them leave their body. And then I ask them to look down on the body that they just left, their past life self. And that perspective shift is often life changing in of itself, where people are like, oh, I feel lighter. I have a sense that who I am is not my body. And look, there's my body. I don't need it anymore. I lived that lifetime. I'm on to the next one. It kind of changes the way you look at losing loved ones or facing the idea of your own mortality in a totally new way.
That would seem to be a very valuable piece to have in one's life because so many people get to the end of their lives and they fear death when it's just a transition.
Yeah, yeah. That happened. My grandmother, she had cancer on and off for 40 years and lived to be 89, but the last, I think, 2 weeks of her life, she lived with no food or water, and it was because she was terrified. She didn't know that she believed in anything. She didn't want to go because she thought she was, facing the great void. And I've seen a lot of other clients tell me that too, that people are just terrified of what lies beyond. So there's a lot of peace that comes with this. And I've actually found that over the years, I've almost completely lost my fear of death. I mean, I'm not asking to die right now. I'm actually really enjoying this current incarnation. I'm not cavalier or anything like that with it. But, if it had to be the end, I would approach it in a completely different and new way because I have this not only faith, but it's a belief based on my own experience. It's my truth. My truth is that there is life after death and lives beyond the life that we're living now.
So, how can the understanding that we're a soul rather than a body shift our relationships, our sense of purpose, and daily decision making?
Love that. Yeah. I mean, it really, when you loosen your identity around your body and your circumstances in life to understand that you're a soul, everything is viewed through that lens. So when you meet another person, you're actually able to see them as a soul as well, not a body, right? So there's no judgment. There's no, seeing other people outside of that shared humanity. And I really feel like it's such a transformative experience to be able to deconstruct that identity and understand that you're a soul and not a body, because then you understand that the purpose of being here is love. We're here to love. We're here to learn how to connect with each other on a deeper level. We're here to be in service to others and help each other find that truth and see. So I actually think that if everyone everywhere understood how reincarnation worked, like what past lives actually meant. I've said this a million times. I think there would be world peace. I think there would be a way we would be able to create a society very naturally that featured true equality for all, respect for all, not just humanity, life, and respect for the planet. So again, yeah, it's just a completely transformative experience that changes the filter by which you view absolutely everything.
Well, Michelle, I just loved your book, Who Do You Think You Are? Where can our listeners go to connect with you and be part of your community?
Yeah, so you can connect with me via my website, which is Michelle with two L's dash Brock.com. I'm on Instagram as Past Life Michelle. I'm also on an app called Evolve Plus that was started by the wonderful psychic medium John Edward. I go live once a month and we do past life regressions. It's a really great spiritual community filled with all kinds of seekers. And you can buy my book. It's available by audiobook anywhere you like to buy books.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you again.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.